Well, good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight for this really important and interesting discussion that we're going to have with our 7 outstanding panelists, how we can future-proof Bath's economy, looking at really a triple whammy of COVID, Brexit, and also the climate emergency. So there are 3 big issues for our future. The most immediate one, of course, is how are we going to come out of COVID, or what will a post-COVID world look like? Bath's economy has been very badly hit as we rely on tourism and the hospitality sector. But we have got other bows and other strings to our bow. We have got other strength in our local economy, and we really need to try and discover and explore what there is that we can grow and become better and more successful about, in order to become more resilient, not to rely just on a particularly strong economy, but an economy that, or sector, but sectors that support each other and help Bath to become bigger and better in its future's endeavors. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Greg Ingham, who is the Chief Executive of Media Clash, which publishes lifestyle magazines like Bath Live, and is the founder of Creative Bath. Greg, very big welcome to you. As a local entrepreneur with your finger on the pulse, can you please share with us what you have experienced and heard over the last few months? We had many discussions together, and I really welcome that we had this close contact, but please share it with everybody else of the challenges that we have faced here in Bath. Over to you.
Well, one of the joys of being introduced by a politician is I can do a politician's technique of not answering the question, and instead I'm going to talk about Bull's Aid. And I would like to just bang the drum for that. It's this year we can't run Bath Bulls as normal in Queen Square to raise money for local charities. So instead we've got an evening tomorrow night, online, free, but you can donate what you want, of comedy and music, including Russell Howard, Chris Marshall, John Richardson, a whole variety of people, including Wera herself, will be singing at one point during the evening. And the whole aim is for the city to come together in a time of fun to support charities, because our charities have never needed support more than they do currently. Please look out, Bull's Aid tomorrow night, 7:30. Just Google Bull's Aid or check on social media. Plug over, but it is important. It's a moment in time for us as a city to come together. I'm aware I've got about 4 minutes now, so I just want to pick up probably half a dozen points, which we've been pushing virtually with Bath Life in our webinars, but also our newsletters. The Planifesto for Bath in the very near term. There are these. Right at the heart of it is buy local. Independents add hugely to the local economy and the living culture of our city. They're distinctive, they attract people to Bath, and they pay their taxes here. So please support them. You don't know what you've got till they've gone. We need to support our independents right here, right now. Secondly, be advocates for this city. Invite your friends here, as many of us do regularly, perhaps in more normal times. When allowed, ask your friends to come here. Weekending London friends particularly add hugely to Bath, to its economy and to its culture. Currently, they may not want or may not be able to have holidays abroad, and we all know about quarantine issues and so on. But they can travel domestically, and Bath is a fantastic city. And I'm sure you're all very proud of the city and you want to show it off to your friends. Invite them here, have them come here, please. Find good things to praise. Yeah, of course these are tough times. Of course we all are in this awful storm, but we're in different boats. We're all navigating our way through. But you know what? We're getting through that. That is what it is, and there may be some really tough times to come. We've just got to get on with it. So find those good things to actually praise in this city amongst your colleagues, amongst partners, amongst businesses, organisations and so on, and highlight #BathTogether, the good that people do, and celebrate their success. Get active in our city. Be active personally, physically, walking around the city, being out there, being seen, being normative in our behaviours. Because if we are leading the way, if we're showing that actually it is quite normal to be out and spending and enjoying and doing things, it will help others feel it's the right thing to do as well. Active culturally, inventive online offerings such as this one from Vera and her team today. They're abounding as fiscal culture looms in the autumn and subsequently. But let's all just get active. There's no point in just hunkering down. We're not going to get anywhere. Step up civically. And of course, many, many have. It's time for civic leadership, even more greatly than ever this autumn. It cannot just assumptively be defaulted to our council. Larger companies or organizations or whatever, people of influence need to play their part as never before. In whose interest is the ultimate growth of this city? All of ours. Play our part, step up. The bigger the organizations, the greater the opportunity. I would argue the greater the responsibility as well to contribute. Support our charities. I've mentioned Bulls Aid, I'm going to mention it again tomorrow night, 7:30. Their need has never been greater. Their teams have never been more overstretched. Their funding has never been more precarious. And finally this, and from an inventive point of view, we've called it the Great Pause, but let it also be the Great Accelerator. It's one of the paradoxes of the pandemic, that in this time of reflection, actually societal changes have been moved forward at rapid pace, whether that's ecological or a whole variety of other areas. So, for example, existing trends about working from home, but also the trust in local and regional brands as distinct from national and international, that greater sense of purpose in all that we do. And a key part of that is partnerships. And to wave the flag for Creative Bath, the creative, tech and cultural sector, we are absolutely delighted with our partnership with Bath University, which culminates on August the 27th for the Creative Bath Awards, where we will celebrate the whole sector and come together to highlight a dynamic part of Bath's economy. Thank you.
Well, Greg, thank you for setting us off this evening. I mean, you've sort of encapsulated. We are facing big challenges, aren't we? And some businesses will fail, but new businesses will arrive. And it is all about these partnerships. And the question is really, do we have the right building blocks? And you know, we will hear about some of these groundbreaking partnerships later on as our panelists will be speaking. So we hear about iStart bringing people together from the University of Bath, Bath Spa and Bath College, and I'm really looking forward to hearing further from that. But now without further ado, we are trying to go and find whether Laurel has managed to oh no, hang on. We are first going to go to Simon Bond, who's the Innovation Director of Set Squared. That is a project that has actually been around for a long time, and I hope you'll explain a little bit what Set Squared is and how it has worked in the past, but how that can actually be taken forward in this future. So Set Squares is a collaboration of 5 universities in the south, and it acts as, if I can explain it like this, as an incubator, doesn't it? An incubator for startup businesses, and has helped over 1,000 startups and secured over £1 billion of support in the past. Now that's a fabulous achievement, and we had this in the city, but how is it going to look in the future? So Simon, over to you. Let's hear from you how you see the future.
Look, thanks for that, Wera. And the secret to Set Squared's success has just been working with absolutely fabulous innovation companies. They're the ones that have raised all this investment for their growth. You're right, we're an incubator, or to use Greg's words, an accelerator. I do love the idea that this may have been a pause, but actually it is a time, an opportunity for great acceleration. As you say, I work for the University of Bath, and I run a partnership of universities that was founded by the University of Bath with others 18 years ago. Seems like a long time, but it's a blink of an eye in the clock speed of innovation. So much has happened. I've had the pleasure to work with so many great businesses in the Innovation Centre in Bath and across the southwest of England, and actually that gives me the kind of confidence that we've just seen exhibited by Greg, a great citizen of our city as well, that there is a future. Now, we are going to have a problem. It looks very likely that we're going to have a severe unemployment problem, probably an underemployment problem, and I'm going to guess, draw on my experience, probably a misdeployment problem, or misemployment problem. People that need to adapt to the new challenges of a new kind of economy, with all the things that have been going on, from the immediate concern of COVID to more prevailing challenges like climate change and our changing political geography. From my point of view, innovation is the only source of growth. And I'm really pleased about that, you know, because actually responsible innovation is the only source of sustainable growth, and innovation relies on people and on people's skills. It's like the I don't know, literacy was in the 19th century, or IT skills in the 20th century. For the 21st century, skills in innovation that allow individuals, citizens to you know, get their fair dues from society, to move up, to get social mobility is absolutely critical. And so Innovation Bath is a great vision. I'm pleased that, you know, putting the last 18 years behind me, that we can look forward to the next 18 years and some more. When we were sorting this out with your colleagues, one of the questions that was posed, well, so all that's very good. How do we speed it up? And, you know, as I say, innovation is a people business. That's the raw resource. It's not coal or wool or any of that old nonsense. It's about good people. And so the trick to speeding it up will be more people, more talented people with skills. And they come from every corner of our society, from the top to the sides, dare I say, from the bottom. And that is a wonderful opportunity, a great challenge for an initiative like Innovation Bath. The last thing I wanted to say is that in our world, you know, of universities, policymakers, council government, we talk about in terms like space and place. You know, what is the meaning of innovation? You know, in a place like Bath, in a place like the Southwest. So I've had a bit of experience over the years running University of Bath's Innovation Centre, the Set Squared Centre, and we move with the different sort of trends and moves of technology, of market demand around the world. There was a time when the geography of Bath, Bristol, Swindon, Cambridge over in the east, and Silicon Valley was the Silicon Southwest, the world's hottest spot for the design of microelectronics and semiconductors. And, you know, that was a huge business, great innovation, great Bath companies for that period of time. The Southwest is well known for its sustainability business. It pioneered in the Southwest sustainability and much of what has been achieved in the UK with social enterprise. So looking forward, these clusterings, these are going to be very important. They attract talent, they attract skill, that human capital in creative digital, as we heard from Greg, challenging climate change with the net zero movement, healthy living, productivity. So I think the opportunity for Innovation Bath is to get behind these clusters, these trends of the market, and purpose our human resource, our innovators behind solving those big problems.
Well, thank you so much, Simon. And we can now hear actually from a partnership that has been incredibly successful only from very recently. So COVID has given us a great deal of hardship, but also immediately people came up with new ideas and new energy to sort of look at new partnership working. And that partnership working is called iStart, bringing together the University of Bath, Bath College, and Bath Spa University. And the project has already received £300,000 from the West of England combined authority. And, you know, this is what can be done if people, you know, put their creative minds together and work together. And these three partners, together with Bath Council, are creating a pioneering education system to help us meet the challenges we face. And it is a real pleasure to see Laurel, who I hope has solved her technology problems and will be able to hear you. If you unmute yourself, Laurel, it's really good to see you. I have been a big fan of Bath College and have been trying to support the college through a lot of the past crises that are very much about funding, but also I think generally, you know, that we look at school and university and always leave further education out of that sort of triangle, really. Further education is also the bread and butter of what we're doing here in Bath. And I'm so pleased that there's now a recognized partnership going, and it will be really good to hear from you directly, Laurel, how this is now going to work, how you see the future, and, you know, how we can make the most of our three great education institutions apart from our schools. Over to you.
Thank you, Vera. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay. Technology is a wonderful thing when it works. So good evening, everyone. The iStart program stands for Innovation, Skills, Technology, Arts, research and teaching. And it really, the starting point of it was a recognition by the partners now that there is such significant talent in BAMES, but some of it goes untapped and does not flourish. And when looking at it, it was quite clear that part of that was because there is a lack of access to both resources and networks. And that is obviously a great detriment to individuals, but also to our community, whether that's society, culture, or for business and employers. And therefore, we also looked at how we could address this. And it was recognized the fact that the current education system doesn't benefit both the city and individuals. It's on a linear format. Progression is usually based on age rather than need, want, and skills requirements. And the academic cycle, you know, starting in September, October, finishing in May, June, or July, really doesn't address what business needs. So the idea was to address this disconnect and to work together in partnership, the three institutions, and use our strengths, individual strengths, to join together to fuse and develop a further education and higher education system that accommodates and addresses some key requirements. So science and research being brought to the fore by the University of Bath, arts, media and social sciences through Bath Spa, and obviously the technical vocational skills by the college, and to develop a partnership that really collapses the traditional learning boundaries, removes those barriers, and puts in place a dynamic focus on education, on skills, on technology and research that enables the dual mandate of business development and individual social inclusion to happen. So designing a learning and research project and future that is inclusive of growth of individuals and for the city and the wider region. So that's what it's about. It's basically a scaffolding framework that provides pathways for learning. It's at all levels. It's at different starts and end dates and different starts and end points. It's accessible to all, which is absolutely fundamental. And it links individuals with business and networks and vice versa. There will be a physical place, but there'll also be an online access. So it's removing all the traditional barriers that education has with regard to business links and developing an accessible framework that enables people to flourish, and we'll benefit as a whole. So it's all about partnership, and it's all about what we've been talking about to date. So it's a real great initiative. I think it's one of the first in the country, and it's definitely groundbreaking, and I think it will really benefit our community, whatever strands of the community there are. So I think the second part was all about how the college plays a supporting role for our young people. And I think everybody has said, basically, you know, it is a difficult environment, and post-COVID brings real difficulties, but also opportunities. I think for the support of our young people is absolutely essential in order to ensure that we have a bright future as a collective. But there's two aspects to it: the well-being of our students and the skills and knowledge base that they have to ensure that they succeed in a post-workplace environment. So what we're trying to do as a college is obviously ensure the skills are fit for purpose, ensure that we listen to employers and ensure that those qualifications, the access to learning is what the sectors need in this changing environment, but also to make sure that our students are have a good and strong well-being in themselves and have the resilience to work within very difficult circumstances. So supporting our students learning outside of the traditional classroom, blended learning opportunities, blended and opportunities for the digital support of our students and access, whatever level they are, whether it's just basic navigational techniques required or high level performance and new qualifications in cyber and cloud and software programming. That whole remit is there for our students, but the definite key driver is that everything that we do is fit for both individuals but also for businesses, and that's where we are. It's about partnerships.
Wonderful, Laurel. It's really refreshing to hear that people finally sort of dare to think outside the box. I mean, I say finally. I'm sure a lot of educators have been thinking around how to make the education system more effective. You know, people will know that I was for a short time a secondary school teacher and teaching in a very deprived area in the east of Manchester. And I wondered there, you know, a lot of our secondary school education is very much geared only towards university and academic learning. And yet only half of our young people end up in a university. So, you know, why are we educating half of our young people towards something that they're not really going to use, and torturing teachers and young people who sit there and really it is to the side of what they're interested at that time. They might come back to it, but I think you are also right. We need to think much more about lifelong learning. And in fact, if I may blow the trumpet for the Lib Dems here, Vince Cable had this idea about a lifelong learning budget, so that we give young people at the age of 16 a budget, and they can spend it over a lifetime into upskilling and relearning and reskilling themselves. And I think that is actually an idea that one might also look at in context of all of this. That, as you say, education is not in that sense linear. And it might suit really our business world and our employers much better anyway. So thank you for that. I'm really very excited to see how you're taking that forward, and we really want to continue to hear from you. We are going now to Richard Godfrey. So Richard is the Chief Executive of Rocket Maker. I think, Richard, I met you first in one of Greg's great events, because I seem to remember you won an award there as one of our great businesses in Bath. You're one of our key tech businesses, so very much what has already been mentioned, you know, the Silicon Valley of the UK. Your offices are in Manvers Street, and you've been hosting many exciting and interesting events that I've been to in the past, and I sort of feel you're very well placed in this current crisis. Or are you? So what do you need? What do you really need in order to sort of flourish in our city in Bath?
Thanks, Vera. So yeah, I think it's some really interesting perspectives already, and I think a lot of that the education piece being critical, and I'll certainly come back to that. So I guess, you know, you asked me earlier around why Bath for rocket makers, and I think it's really that well, I've been here since I was 15 and always loved the area, and wanted to stay here and have a real influence in the ecosystem around for influencing technology and innovation in the area, and especially in Bath, but also, dare I say, in Bristol. So the whole area and connecting it all up together and seeing the value of both the cities together, I think is hugely important for us to do. We started in the Innovation Centre, so Simon Bond there has an awful lot to answer for. It's 13 years ago we turned up, and three of us, not with much of a clue as to how to run a business, but Simon and his team helped us to do that. We then found a really interesting office up on Bartlett Street, which was really affordable for us. And I think that's one of the key things that we really need to make sure is happening. COVID's changing the way people are working, but affordable office space is something that Bath has really lacked, and I think there's certainly opportunity to do something for that. I guess most people won't know Rocket Makers. We're not that big in a sense, but we've been going for 13 years. We work with a lot of startup and scale-up companies, and also other organisations that want to do innovation. So, as Simon says, innovation is the critical part of getting the economy moving around here, and I think driving new, interesting jobs, and certainly jobs that are perhaps out of resetting the balance with the tourism and leisure sector that's here into some of the other jobs which are real potential, and that's where we are. So we have 30 designers, software developers, and we're getting involved in really interesting projects. Some well-known, some not so. For example, we build a medical record system for all our Olympic athletes in the UK. And I think it's really telling. I've been working a little bit around some of the organisations in Bath, and we have so many really interesting stories to tell of small to medium-sized businesses in this area who are having a worldwide impact on what they're doing. Mostly we're known as a tourist destination, but actually we have really influential businesses that pack a big punch worldwide for things. We also attract a lot of people as entrepreneurs from London. We work with startups and often get involved in them and often take some equity in those businesses in order to help them grow, where we grow alongside them. And we see a lot of entrepreneurs coming out of London for various reasons, not least wanting to get a better work-life balance, perhaps where they don't want to bring up children in the capital and have opportunities. And I think maximising those entrepreneurs' opportunities and driving it is something that we should really be looking at doing. So Bath, it's not all good, if we're really honest. And I think there's some things that we really need to look at there. Transport has always been a bit of a challenge with these things. Fibre optic broadband, thankfully we have some people who are trying to change that, and I'm sure Evan will touch on it coming up. But really, that connectivity has never been great in the city, and we need to do things to really address that. We don't have really affordable office space or an abundance of it, and there's lots of stuff happening in the Keys, but I question whether that will really be affordable and for organisations that are small to give them the chance to grow. We don't necessarily have that many affordable homes around either, which is, lots of people have to travel into Bath from different parts of the region because of affordability of housing. And we also don't have a lot of large businesses. So there isn't an opportunity for people to move between businesses very easily. So I think there's some challenges, but there is some great stuff that we have. We have a World Heritage City. I mean, who doesn't love Bath and when they come to it? We have 2 great universities, an amazing college. We kind of have 4 universities within 15 miles if you include the Bristol ones, and that's astonishing, certainly from an innovation perspective. We have a great creative community with Creative Bath. We have some world-class companies, as I've said, and being close to Bristol and accessible to London is really important. So I think there's so much that we have that we really need to extenuate, and especially in this post-COVID world, it's important that we maximise the things that we do have in a way that drives innovation and interest around here.
Well, thank you, Richard. So partnerships again, and working together and understanding how we are better together. Infrastructure and connectivity is one of the key aspects of it. And we always think about connectivity, of course, first physically, but we are now hearing from our next speaker, who is Evan Wienburg, and he's the co-founder and chief executive of TrueSpeed. Let me just go. I'm glancing on the chat a little bit. People talk about the green recovery bit of it. I think it'd be great if if you're starting in the chat and people who are looking to contribute later on. How do we get the 3 sort of together? A health recovery, because we're still in the midst of a pandemic, an economic recovery, and the green recovery. How do we actually look at these sort of things in the round? And what can innovative businesses contribute to that recovery that has to be green, that has to be healthy, that has to be just and fair, and that has to be ultimately economically viable. But so start thinking around how can we think in that complexity together. But while I keep your sort of thinking juices going, let's hear from Evan now, co-founder of TrueSpeed, as I've already said. We are lacking of the lack of connectivity is also actually something that we probably see about our internet connections. And if we want to really have future-proof businesses, internet connections and the speed of how we can access information, share information, do stuff like Zoom is very, very important. So without further ado, Evan, over to you.
Thanks, Vera. I think listening to what's being said, I mean, clearly I'm not going to sit here and say everybody needs better broadband, don't we? Because I think we all understand that we need the connectivity to the world that makes sense to allow us to operate. Okay, that's a given. And the greater the bandwidth and the greater the connectivity, the more opportunity for innovation that creates. So it's a bottleneck, and if you take that bottleneck away, It allows people to think more freely and be more innovative. And if they're more innovative, they will get more things done. Okay, right. So let's put that aside and talk about some of the things that we've actually been talking about today. Opportunity, innovation, the future, what's post-COVID, all of these things. And if we take a holistic view on all of this and say, actually, if we all just act responsibly in the areas that we are responsible for and lead the people around us through the process of recovery will be more speedy and more comfortable. And I'll explain what I mean by that. We're going to carry on delivering our fibre broadband network across the region. And it's Bath focused, but it isn't, it's regional focused, because a lot of people that work in Bath are now operating at home in the countryside or outside of Bath right now on TrueSpeed network and are having no problems at all doing business, today. We moved into Bath. We took one of the Pinesgate office blocks and we moved in on the 17th of March. All 100 or so of us, we're now 150 people, and we moved out on the 17th of March. Okay, so let everybody unpack their crates, because the crates had to go back to the moving company, and then told everybody to go home. But we'd planned for that. So operating from home wasn't a problem. We are operating the company in a virtual sense, and it works very well indeed. And we've learned a lot of lessons. I've certainly learned a lot of lessons as a leader of people, how to trust more people to work from home, how to operate that piece. I think my car outside's got 3.5 months to the gallon on it, which means, you know, we've not been spending money on petrol, which means the greener economy. Yeah, there's a lot of benefits to what we've been doing, and we're also operating a lot more effectively and efficiently, minded of people's mental health and well-being, etc. But, you know, we are a stronger company coming out of the lockdown process than we were going in, and we're just hoping that we can support the local economy in a way that makes sense to allow other companies to, who might be struggling to just be that much stronger going forward. You know, when we look at the educational piece and the you know, we've grown to another 40 people over lockdown, and we've got a lot more growing to do. And you go, where's the skill set coming from? Where are these people coming from? And I'm actually looking at, you know, a 10-year-old, 11-year-old right now as my future employee in 6 or 7 years' time. And what am I looking for from those people? You know, I've had school kids coming through our company with one of the local secondary schools who we partnered with, who sent year 9 through. The kids that need a little bit of guidance from adults that weren't, so they weren't tearaways, but they needed some kind of view on the world that wasn't their teacher or their parents. And of course, that was a 9-week process for half a day. And they came in, and by the time they left, they were completely different in and around our workspace. You know, the kinds of questions they asked when they first came in were, what qualifications are you looking for? You know, do I need a university degree? What is it about me that makes me appealing to you? I hope the people from the universities close their ears when I speak now. But what we said to them was, we're looking for people who work hard. We're looking for people who get stuck in. And we're looking for people who want to be part of a team. And secondary to that, your educational qualifications are important. But if you do work hard and you do get stuck in, you will do the best that you can be. And that's one of our company mottos every day, is be the best you can be. So you can't be better than you can be, right? But you can be the best at what you're trying to do. And that's part of the culture of what we're pushing. So, you know, we're looking to set up apprenticeships in TrueSpeed to grow the talent that we require going forward. So we want to provide youngsters opportunities to learn where perhaps they would have had no opportunities at all in the recession that may or will follow COVID. So that's where we're coming from with us. But do we need the network? Yes. Are we delivering it? Yes. And we're going to continue doing that until the country is covered in, well, until the region that we're in is covered in fibre. I'm not quite sure I've answered all your questions. You asked me what a gigabit city is. There's no such thing. Okay. Let's just call it a really well-connected city that operates well. You know, you don't talk about your city that has electricity, do you? You don't talk about your city that has water or gas, and you shouldn't be talking about your city that has internet. It should just be there, and it should work really well.
Yeah, thank you, Evan. Although it's, you know, let's talk about the things that excite and inspire us. And when we talk about education, and I was sitting in classrooms, honestly, and wondered how I could inspire, you know, I was teaching boys, you know, to go and learn German, and then they don't know what they're learning German for. I think it is making that connection of people seeing they're doing something, they're inspired, and they're doing it for something, and you know, providing that inspiration, whether that be a business who's training young people, or whether that's a teaching institution. I think that's you know, how we get the best out of young people and make them the best they can be. Nothing worse than for young people being bored. So how do you let's create that excitement here in Bath, you know, in a beautiful surrounding, yes, historic, but we are creating that excitement for the future. And no better person to speak about creating exciting learning environments than Professor Sue Rigby, who's the Vice Chancellor of Bath Spa University. Welcome, Sue. We have heard from you before, actually, in one of these community conversations that we had. But we want to hear more about your partnership with Laurel and the iStart project, and how this is really going to be groundbreaking and different, but also the big changes that you think we are facing as a city. And then talk us through Restart and your shared vision of reskilling and upskilling the workforce in this changing work environment. Over to you, Sue.
Thank you, Vera, and thank you for inviting me back. That was exceptionally kind and perhaps a bit brave, but I'll try and be coherent and quick. Laurel, the principal of the college, whom you've heard from earlier, and I got together quite early in lockdown and thought, what matters as we recover from COVID-19? And we thought, actually, what really, really matters are people. And in our case, people in Bath and North East Somerset. And what's going to happen to those people very soon, in fact, it's happening already, is that for a lot of them, they're going to find that the skills that fit them for the job they've been doing up till now will no longer equip them for the jobs that are available next. So you might have spent a career working in retail, and you suddenly find that nobody will visit your shop. Now, it may be that over a period of time, folk get their confidence back and they recover into those spaces. But equally, it may be that that retail activity needs to go online now. So take another example. You might be a businessman who has decided that actually having half your staff working from home is a brilliant thing. But your HR director probably has no expertise in making sure that people working from home are in good mental health and as productive as they can be. And indeed, as a business leader, you've just gone through the biggest crisis that probably you've ever experienced. But none of the leadership training that you had equipped you to deal with a major crisis like that. You had half an hour on Black Swan events, and then you went back to standard leadership training. So from somebody with very few qualifications, but an awful lot of life skill, the retailer, to somebody who's already very highly qualified, but suddenly doesn't have the skills they need, all those people need help, and they need it now. It isn't a matter of standing back and thoughtfully waiting for 2 or 3 years to get the right context. They are going to need help between now and Christmas. So Laurel and I came up with this idea of Restart, which is the baby sort of preamble for iStart, which Laurel talked about earlier. It's a quick, rapid reskilling for anybody in Bath and North East Somerset who needs it. And we've got 2 prongs that we're going for. One is the people who are losing their jobs, and the other is the employers who suddenly find they need a new set of skills. And most of those skills we anticipate are either going to be digital. I mean, the one benefit of COVID is that we're all good at digital now, but we probably need to be better. And that means people who can do cybersecurity, who can connect to you when your laptop falls over in your home and so on. So we think that digital will be a huge part of that reskilling, but we think the other piece will be emotional intelligence and the ability to communicate, because a digital environment is utterly sterile unless people can talk to one another through it, communicate, interact. That's how you're going to sell your wares. That's how you're going to run your company. That's actually how you innovate. So we're putting on this suite of skills. Bath College have put in all the intellectual property to the courses we can run. Bath Spa University is putting in money, which is extremely rare for us, and employing a couple of people to take part in the delivery of those courses. We've got a big group of employers who are guiding us as respects what's needed in terms of those skills and courses. And the idea is that anybody who touches Restart in any way, we will mentor and support so that they get quick reskilling now. But the hope is that each of those courses they take will be durable and long lasting, and ideally build up, as Laurel was suggesting, to those larger qualifications that will change people's lives. So that's the kind of passion behind this. But really what we feel is urgency. And we are worried that although we're getting lots of support from individuals and companies and corporations and the council and the West of England Combined Authority, it's very hard for anyone to mobilise quickly enough to have arms around the people who are losing their jobs now. So that's what we're trying to do, Vera, and I think I should stop before I get a bit carried away.
Well, it's absolutely great to hear you speak with that passion about responding very quickly to the need and the urgency. And the question then really is, you know, what do you then need if you say we can't get to the people quickly enough? And those are then the, you know, the ideas are there, but then how do you put all the pieces of the puzzle together in order to get what you offer together with the people who need it? And you know, we might need very quickly another conversation of you know, who is it you need, what is it you need, and how can we make that happen? But we have a final speaker. You've been waiting very patiently, Professor Chick Wilson, who is the Associated Dean for Research in the Faculty of Science at the University of Bath, as well as a Professor of Chemistry. Chick, very, very good to see you too, and thank you for agreeing to come to speak to us today. You're a part of a stable of academic researchers working on important advances, and please tell us about the exciting projects that you that could be, and I say could be, the businesses of tomorrow. It's always, you know, this potential is there, and how do we bring potential into reality? Over to you.
Thank you very much for that, and thanks for the opportunity to contribute this evening. I'd like perhaps to talk generally about how we might harness the strength of our academic researchers at the University of Bath to deliver advances that can benefit the city and the region, both as we emerge from the current situation and also on an ongoing basis. We have got a wide range of excellent and highly relevant research up at the top of the hill there, and some innovative ways to develop these areas quickly and in highly interdisciplinary manners that could actually be the subject of a session all by itself. For example, a recent COVID-19 research response virtual sandpits were an exemplar of innovative ways of working, harnessing creative and cross-disciplinary thinking and engagement, directly addressing community engagement with research here in the city. But I'm not going to talk about those. I'm going to instead talk about highlighting some of the existing research areas that I think are ready and waiting to develop into business and potential development opportunities, while, you know, noting the strong interactions we have across the city with Baines, with WECA, with our fellow academic institutions who we've heard from, and from Simon's Innovation Centre and Set Squared Enterprise that we've also heard from this evening. To start, I'd perhaps just talk about our research in digital and artificial intelligence at the university that's underpinned actually both by deep theoretical research and also close to application approaches. And we've got exemplars of those approaches in cybersecurity, creative digital, motion capture, and others that are hugely influential and which are already engaging with end users and businesses, or have the obvious potential to do so in the near future. A lot of that effort crosses over strongly with the skills agenda that we've heard quite a bit about this evening, and also with the iStart initiative that's been a feature of the contributions. One element that links these together is really, you know, the way we're trying to use our research background in digital and supporting skills with science at the university. That's our leadership of the National Institute of Coding, the IOC, which has played its part so far in upskilling around 500,000 people nationwide by providing courses that equip them with skills that we know employers are seeking. And the Institute of Coding will be part of the iStart initiative, and that will help enhance its local relevance, and its aims include delivering, for example, short course teaching of core digital and professional skills to groups of the region's unemployed, allowing these people to benefit immediately from a timely pivot towards crisis resilient and post-crisis resilient digital careers. That's an example of a real contribution that can be made there. On another aspect of digital skills, we also actually host one of the UK's national centres for doctoral training in artificial intelligence, and that helps place Bath at the centre of what is going to be a high growth area over the next few years. Move away from sort of digital to more stuff, if I may put it that way. We've heard about the climate emergency this evening quite a bit, and one of our main areas of high critical mass research strength at the University of Bath is that of sustainable and circular technologies. And our research there looks to place sustainability at the heart of the manufacturing of materials, taking account of the principles of what is called the circular economy, and encompassing the feedstocks that we use, energy use, enhanced material properties, digital approaches, and the full life cycle of products and process. And this approach addresses at its heart issues that are highly pertinent to the climate emergency and to delivering the clean and green recovery and growth that we need, that has also been mentioned this evening. We've got a team of well over 100 researchers working in this area, innovating in process design, materials usage, and this has potential applications across a whole range of sectors. And increasingly, we are delivering an industry and business focus in that research, notably with our Sustainable Technologies Business Acceleration Hub, which is based out of the Innovation Centre in Set Squared, and that's helped around 120 SMEs so far to develop more sustainable approaches to their business. Another aspect of our research that perhaps is even more immediately relevant to the city, and where we've got very strong research, is that of sustainable built environment. And this can help address current and future issues we've got in Bath. The research here covers not only materials, again with the emphasis on clean and green and low energy, but also the design of both the building and the way it interacts with its environment to contribute to healthy living and well-being of people inhabiting these buildings. A strong combination there of our engineers, our architects, psychologists, for example, offering interdisciplinary approaches again that can offer highly relevant and novel insights there. Thinking about well-being, which I covered in that little part, I'd like also to mention briefly our approach in the area of healthy ageing. Once again, the research that we've got at the university stresses disciplinary excellence, but also strongly collaborative interdisciplinary approaches that we're all realizing are the way of the future. And that puts our life scientists, our engineers, our social scientists, and our clinical facing expertise together. And that allows us to link with a range of healthcare providers, including the RUH and many others, and looking towards future opportunities for community health benefits in the city. And finally, I'd like to mention another of our assets, and that's our pool of extremely talented undergraduate and postgraduate students who are involved in these research projects that I've been mentioning. We've got a proud tradition at the University of Bath of equipping our students to be not only excellent, but also real world facing. And we're looking at ways of increasingly targeting these efforts towards issues of immediate local concern, and to have more of our talented graduates contributing locally after they graduate and move into the economy. The researchers that I work with at the University of Bath have got high motivation to link strongly to the city and its needs, and we're hoping that the current and future initiatives that we're involved in will enable the potential of this to come to fruition. Thank you, Wera.
Well, you know, absolutely amazing stuff, all the things that we could do. And, you know, I'm going to have a little bit of time before we are taking the whole discussion, the question and answer session to our audience. But me, as having the privilege of being in the chair, I'm sort of asking a few challenging questions of the panel, and please indicate who might answer that question. So we've got these ideas. But on the other hand, so many people come to me and say, well, I can't continue to run my retail business, I can't continue to run my restaurant business, and so on and so forth. So we've had that employment in the city, and we'll probably lose some of it. Some of our tourism, or we hear that tourism is not going to come back to levels of pre-COVID until 2024 perhaps. So, you know, we need new business in the city, and how can, you know, how does that happen practically? You know, you've got these ideas, And okay, so how does that translate into an actual practical business, an employer, somebody who employs young people who have graduated from the university because we want to keep them here? How would that work? How can I imagine that? Who can help me out here from the panel? Richard, you have unmuted yourself.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of we're seeing because we work with startups, we're seeing a real mixed bag of organisations that are in the really difficult industries. So travel, finance, leisure. We've had companies which are 100% furloughing their teams. We have companies that are shutting down and stuff there. But on the flip side, we have people finding opportunities where, whether it's medical testing devices that have been coming out, whether it's individuals that perhaps have seen this as an opportunity to get an idea that they've been thinking about and maybe trying to actively do. So I think it's an opportunity for people who have the ability to take that opportunity to do something with it, and we're certainly seeing a lot of innovative ideas coming through. There's no lack of people trying to do new things. Now, I guess the key thing with that is, do they have the support and the funding and the educational support to be able to achieve that? And I think that's where we really need to help people do that. So there's no lack of innovation and ideas. It's just there is a lack of funding, support, and exactly as Sue and Laurel have been talking about, that sort of support for enabling people to cross-train and get those skills. We have, as an example, there's some great stuff going on that we've already heard about, but we have an organisation in Bath called Maiden Academy. We've hired, over the last few years, we've hired 6 people through the Maiden Academy, and this is a 16-week program of getting people from zero computing skills, from programming, all the way through using really current technologies to be able to come and contribute and grow new businesses, and that's been a great opportunity for us. So I think thinking educationally much more broader, and the Restart program that's going on is fantastic. I think that's enabling that to happen, and for businesses in Bath to get involved and support that, I think is a really important thing. But I don't think there's any lack of imagination, interest, opportunity, but I think there is a lack of support that can make that happen.
Now, Evan and Greg have unmuted themselves. So Evan and then Greg.
Yeah, I think I really enjoy these kinds of panels because it brings a whole bunch of really different thinking into the same place where, and you can see where that thinking's coming from. I think that we ought to be positive, think positively and be positive, especially the business leaders who have the ability to make changes quickly to give more people opportunity where they would not have had that opportunity in the past. And if we are genuine about this, there's no government waving of the wand. There's no one thing that's going to happen. And if we are simply responsible for our own little bubble and increasing that little bubble a little bit, then a big thing will happen across the region. So we want our youngsters to have opportunities and not to want to go elsewhere or to feel that they've got a future. So we've got to prove that there is one. I can't do it for everybody, but I can do it for a few people. And if all the other business leaders who are able to do that now, where they might well not have done in the past, that will help enormously. And I think that's a message that needs to get out across the city and across the region. If what we're talking about here, taking people who have lost their livelihoods from parts of the economy that will recover, and they will recover, they might recover in a different way. But in the short term and the medium term, taking the training that Sue and Laurel are proposing and allowing us as employers and giving us the space to have the people that we want to use, but also just to invest in people now and go where I might not have employed that particular person, I'm going to do it now because I think it has a future for me. And if we talk like that, people like me, Greg and others and Richard, we can make a difference for the region.
Greg.
Yeah, thanks. I think one thing that would also make a difference is, and this is prompted by the great pause of many conversations I've had with others, that sense that how we have defined success previously is not necessarily what success either will be or should be going forwards. For example, there's a lot of evidence about the lack of correlation over a certain level of income between more income and happiness. More doesn't necessarily make you better, make you happier or whatever. We're redefining ourselves in terms of what is success, rather than success being what one has materially, but success might also be a sense of social or civic purpose in the organisations which we run, or promoting the betterment of the city. Of course, there's an element of enlightened self-interest, and that is should be transparent and reasonable that it exists. But ultimately, if we as leaders in whichever way, or people who run businesses, or people with some connections or whatever, if we can help develop the city better, that as a measure of success strikes me as far more interesting than whatever the material trappings we have. And it's both reflect that through the age groups that we employ, and I'm speaking as one of the older members of the panel here, but also to realise that is what many of millennials and those at Bath Spa and University of Bath and so on, their own values are different from ours at that same age. And this is an opportunity from this great pause to be the great accelerator and to say, we're going to redefine what we think success is, because there is something deep in a sense of purpose for a business, which has less existed previously.
Well, thank you, Greg. And I see in the chat as I glance through it, lots of agreement. And indeed, I mean, we are talking now very much around, can we redefine economy success only in terms of growth? Or are there other factors that actually define a successful economy? And I have said for a while, an economy that is only successful for a small part of society that make money, but leaves behind many others, I wouldn't call that a successful society if you leave too many people behind. But Simon, you have unmuted yourselves. You're making a contribution here too.
Yeah, and I don't want to bring the conversation back, and absolutely the recalibrating of our goals, values. It's not just COVID. This has been a movement for some time. It's been really wonderful to see that coming through with entrepreneurs who've really been teaching us at Set Square a thing or two about purposing, putting purpose behind enterprises. But your point, what are we really going to do? What's practically going to put jobs back into the economy, get people working, feeling secure, confident about themselves and their lives for themselves and their families. And I did, it is about following through. Richard's point, getting money into businesses. There is a lot of government funding, the Future Fund. There is private funding. A colleague of mine, Rosie Bennett, who runs our Set Squared investment program, working very closely with business angels in Bath, in Bristol, private equity club, getting good investment into businesses. And it's all about following through. Programs, words are one thing, but actually really sweating out assets. I found myself thinking, listening to Chick, it's great just to get reconnected with the great stuff that comes from the University of Bath. Both universities, the intellectual property, every one of the ideas that we heard from Chick and from Sue is 1,000 jobs that could be made. So what are we going to do today, tomorrow, next week, next month to turn those ideas and purpose them for our economy in Bath? I think Restart is great, and I think iStart is a fantastic vision for this city. Let's give ourselves that beacon, a place that we can go and get this stuff done.
And Sue, can I just in previous conversations that we had, very practical support that you're offering in terms of space to some of your postgrad students. Did you talk to me about that? How you can actually help students very practically, and the University of the Bath Spa University is doing just that.
Well, we reckon that our students have a really low chance of getting into a good job in the next few months. A few of them are so fantastic, they've done it. But for a lot of them, it'll be a little while before the economy picks up. So we're just simply offering one of our large buildings for those recent graduates to use. So the grad pad is an innovation centre, and our careers and entrepreneurship experts are there to help them try to set up a new business. I mean, one of the things we noticed was that our art show this year, we normally expect a footfall of maybe 500 or 600 people in the art show. This year we had to put it online. It was called No Show, and the footfall was 4 or 5 times what it would have been otherwise. So I think we need to stop seeing this crisis as a negative and see it as a future positive. If those artists can now advertise their wares online, if they can create and collaborate online, then they've got a skill that none of our previous graduates had. And there are also skills that employers can use, and that areas like Set Squared, once those ideas are a bit more formed, might be able to pull forward into successful companies, because all of a sudden everybody's been jangled around. And we tend to think that's a bad thing, but for some people, the brilliant ones, it'll be a good thing.
Excellent, absolutely. I mean, these are the practical examples that then can sort of set us off to really think positively into the future. Now, I'll stop talking. Matt is in the room now. Matt, can you show yourself? Hello, Matt.
Yes.
And you
haven't taken my tie off yet.
You can now move to our next session when we are opening up for our audience to ask questions. Over to you, Matt, and over to our audience.
Thank you. There's been lots of questions in the chat. So back at the beginning, Jane was asking about empty shops and how we might use them differently. And I certainly saw a tweet from Bath Bid today talking about making sure that empty shops remain tidy to promote the rest of the high street. And I guess that ties in with the whole conversation about how we should think about our high streets. So does anyone have any ideas about how we could use empty shops differently?
Yeah, if I may offer this.
Yeah.
It's quite clear that the horizons of retail are changing and have been for some time. There's a structural shift been going on. We all know all of that. It's been accelerated through COVID. The smarter independent retailers offering something unique, differentiated, and with brilliant service absolutely are thriving. I was speaking to one today without naming them, who are doing extremely well. But come what may, the full real estate of the high street is likely to need fewer shops. I think what it needs is vision and imagination from our two largest landlords in the city. One is St John's, a charity, and the other is Baines, as a civic body. And for them to take, which they have had to because of their fiduciary duties, to take a short-term view, which says maximising as far as possible the short-term value, which pushes rents up, which historically has favoured the larger multinationals or chain organisations and so on. That just has to change, because they should increasingly see themselves as civic guardians of the assets of this city, and charging such high prices that drives businesses out or doesn't provide a way of supporting those businesses is in no one's interest at all. And there needs to be, and it's easy to say from the outside, but a radical change in thinking about why we do what we do with the real estate of this city.
Very good. Yes, Simon.
Yeah, well, just to pick up on what you're saying, Greg, couldn't agree more. And, you know, there is an opportunity now with those landlords. Let's start an incubator for retail. I've seen students from all of the education institutions in Bath, the college, University of Bath, running these student enterprise initiatives. They run pop-up shops. They're great. Let's make that really open, organize that. The landlords could do that. And, you know, there will be some success stories out of that. In the meantime, it will make Bath a super attractive place, an innovative, refreshing retail offering to the public that will bring them into the mainstream retail as well. We can do this stuff.
Laurel, do you want to say something on that?
Yes, I just wanted to put a point in. With regard to the restart, we have asked the local authority to release some shops to us in order that we have accessibility onto High Street for those that want to drop in, get careers advice, and also initiate their learning and skills requirement development. So we're actively talking to Baines on that, and hopefully they will be able to release those premises to us to encourage people to literally, as they walk by, drop in and get some guidance and start the skills development that they need.
And do you think I've heard the comment that retail needs to, we're taking a hit on tourism and hospitality. So does retail need to focus more on the local population?
From my perspective, I mean, obviously the skills that we use with our students with regard to retail and travel and tourism and hospitality is fundamental both to the city and the wider environment. But they have broader skills as well, and Sue related to this, you know, that the ability to use and develop communication skills, teamwork, independent problem solving. They have a wide range of what traditionally been called the softer skills, which aren't necessarily utilised or recognised immediately because they're classed as retail students or travel and tourism students. So I think it's a case of, yes, there is a different phase with regard to travel and tourism, hospitality and catering within the city. I think it will bounce back. It's going to be probably 2-3 years before it is where it is at the moment. But just because they are designated as having the vocational technical skills that they do also have the wider, broader skills that will enable them to move on and change career paths and develop accordingly. So I think, yeah, from that perspective, most definitely, but there's more to those that work in those industries than the headline technical vocational sector that they work in.
Greg, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I would actually. It's also one of the many paradoxes of the pandemic that we've never felt more local. Lockdown has made us all more local. We've discovered our locales in a way we haven't done previously. We've been buying from the local suppliers that have been out there. But the paradox is we've also got more cardboard being delivered via Amazon from wherever. And I think that realization there actually is a connection between where you buy. I see one of the comments is talking about a contract that went out to some company in Chicago rather than being to a local Bath business. But there absolutely is a connection between where you buy and what your city is like, whether that's in terms of ecologically, of course, or whether that's in terms of the variety and the sort of retail topography of the city and so on. If we don't all realize that connection and we don't buy local, we don't support our local businesses, we're going to end up with homogeneity or worse than that, more derelict areas. And so I think it's just as profound and as simple as support local wherever we can. And if you're running those businesses, you haven't got much choice than seeking that, because we're not going to get the international, certainly, and even national tourism to the same extent as Laurel's sort of been saying. We're not going to get that for some long time. So therefore, of course, focus on your local customers.
Couldn't agree more, Greg. Buy your internet locally. That's all I say.
I have a question from Lynn. We had a question from Lynn about how we assist with careers advice. So we may have had a lot of self-reflection during lockdown, but how do we contact those people and help them find what they want to do, what the skills they would need for that? So we're making all the skills training available, but how do we get that message out to people who are maybe coming out of COVID thinking, I need to do something else?
Shall I pick that one up?
Laurel?
Yeah, okay. We are working with the local authority and have a one-stop shop. Vera mentioned earlier that she'd been to see at Peasdown the well-being and support mechanisms that are there. Part of that is signposting to education as well. So the local authority are going to arrange for distribution of a single entry point, whether that's email or on phone, for people that need or want some kind of support, whether that is triage with the welfare, but also then moving on to education. And on top of that, we've got the universities and the college with the local authority demonstrating where they can contact us. We will be able to just contact us on our website or by phones at all the institutions, and we'll be able to signpost them. But it's that message going out that is just starting to go out that should help us a single and unified approach to directing people into the restart or directing people into careers opportunities.
Can I just very quickly come in here as an ex-school teacher and an a parent, but of grown-up children now. Careers advice has been bad for a long time, I think. So if we really want to make a difference here, I think we need to reach out to schools and our academy trusts to say, look, guys, it is important that we really put our minds to better careers advice. It's become worse over the years anyway, because school funding has become dire. But unless we get careers advice right, we don't get job creation, jobs right. So it is an essential part of regrowing the economy. And I think that is very much a message that we need to take all the way back into schools, actually.
I completely agree with that, Vera. But I think there's another thing, which is that kids only want to do things that they've seen other people doing or they think are cool. So, you know, if you think back, in universities, we saw this massive spike in people who want to read psychology after there was some great detective series on TV that had psychologists doing wacky things. And if you amplify that into real life, you know, if the people you see are doing a really wide range of interesting jobs and they're creative and they're fulfilled, then you will have an anticipation that you can be that. And partly, I think in Bath, we have to mirror what we would like our kids to want to be and not just to give them advice. Because advice is one thing, but that lived experience of what they might become is another.
Well, we might then have to engage with our television companies. And I remember I've had a great discussion with ITV. I think, you know, what programs do they run? You know, what role models do you create that kids then want to follow? And there could be a partnership with schools and, you know, television or social media companies or whatever, you know, in order to create, as you say, these role models for the future.
Simon, did you want to?
Well, just to say that the CSI crime scene of today is net zero and climate change. If you want to, you know, what young people to respond to is to save their world, and I think inspiring them with solutions for that, which lead to innovation, R&D, new jobs, that's it's doing a better job than the TV could ever do. It's at the heart of every young person's ambition and desire that I get to meet, you know, working close to the universities. So, you know, we shouldn't underestimate the motivation of this generation behind that. And I think it's important, these quick reactions to solve the immediate spike of the economic crisis. For sure, there will be unemployed and underemployed people, but that should not be at the sake of planning for the not so distant future. So these big initiatives, you know, and they're going to take a little bit more time, several years to get into place. Like iStart, the work that we've been hearing about, turning ideas into innovation into businesses that create, you know, really world-class jobs. Can't take our eye off the ball of that either.
Chick, you keep unmuting. So, Chick, you keep unmuting yourself. Does that mean that you want to make a contribution?
It does. And I'll just pick up on that last point. And actually, the iStart thing is important because iStart is going to be a physical place. But the work of iStart, as has been emphasised by Sue and Laurel with Restart, etc., can start now. It doesn't need the place. It can go. And the sort of ambitions that we've got for rolling out the benefits locally, you know, we want to deliver them now, as well as having the vision for, you know, for the overall institute, etc.
Okay, moving on to, I've got a question from Tarsin and also a question from Tom on office space. And it's one is, will Troopspeed ever go back to the office? And the other is, do we need to reevaluate the office, and do we need to think differently about our workspaces? Because that has an impact on whether we have an office shortage in the city or plenty of office in the city. Do we need to think differently about our office space?
The answer is yes and yes. I think we are going to go back to the office when it's the right thing to do. The hoops I'm having to jump through to ensure that the environment is safer than it is right now with regards to COVID. At some point we will have a vaccine, and at some point herd immunity will kick in, and it won't be COVID, but it'll be something else. What have we learned? And I can only talk from us, that we can operate differently and that we can trust people to work in a way that makes sense from home. I think a lot of caution should be paid to the view that because we are all working from home now, that's the way it's going to be going forward. I don't think that's true. I think remote working, remote meetings, I know we do our board meeting now over Zoom, and it means that instead of spending the whole day having a board meeting, we can have a board meeting that lasts 3 hours, and the rest of the day is available to do other stuff because nobody's had to travel. When people have to travel, you waste a lot of time pretending to do other stuff. So we've learned a lot of lessons, and the key for this remote paradise that we're in, if you want to call it that, is that everybody's in it. Okay, so if everybody's remotely working, then you have a tempo that is everybody's remotely working. But if only half the people are remotely working, everybody else is working in the office, it's how you integrate that process to make sure that you get the best value from your time whilst getting things done. So the answer is, yeah, we're going to move back to the office. I think there's a good part of my team that are looking forward to being back together again, and being friends with each other as they are, and being a strong team. They do need that physical contact. I'm, on the other hand, having to do engineering profiles on how air moves through the building, and how getting the whole office laser mapped, and ensuring that there's enough space, and that, you know, aerosol dispersion through the building, and that the air conditioning works in the way, even though I'm renting the building. There's a lot of work to do, and there's much more to do than meets the eye. And there are more responsibilities on business leaders around bringing people back into the office than simply saying, well, the government says it's okay, do so, because HSE think differently. So there are a bunch of issues that need to get done. I think we should look at our office differently. I think we have already, and making our office more like a, well, as we were trying to do, a living room, bizarrely, as people have all been working at, as we say, living at work over the last 4 months. That's what we were trying to get as an approach to the office. I'm not so sure that's going to be welcome. I think they want their little cells back again, and to know. And so, yeah, only joking. No, great. But the key here is to keep the team together, and to keep the team happy, and to encourage them to do good things by example, and ensure that they want to be there all the time. Can I just quickly just say something about what we should be doing? Now, there's lots and lots of children, by the way, who've watched their parents work. Some haven't, because their parents have been working and they've not had that opportunity. But there are kids now that know what their parents do for a living. And I think that's really important too, because there will be a lot of role models that will have shown their children what they do, and the children might be quite proud of what they're getting up to and aspire to be similar to them. So I think the lockdown piece isn't all that bad, but giving children role models, probably outside of the parenthood or the school, we saw when we had the year 9s come through, was very, very positive indeed.
Yeah, Laurel, you unmuted, and Greg as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, you know, where education is concerned, we are for September going down the blended learning approach. So a number of our students will be in, and have to be in because of the practical operations that we do and the practical assessments that they undertake. But a lot will be online, you know, within a week we had to get our delivery online when we were advised on the 23rd of March to close, to ensure that we maintained that contact with our students throughout the summer, continued their delivery and the support online, and we're taking that initiative and blending it in with classroom and classroom delivery. So it is going to be completely different going forward, but it also will be giving them skills that they haven't necessarily had in the past, and for their future will be able to consolidate those skills in whatever work placement, apprenticeships and future that they decide. So I think that combined approach is not just for the workplace, but it is through education as well.
Greg, and then Richard.
Yeah, I just want to pick up on a couple of additional themes. I think one of the really big positives from working from home is the increased amount of trust that there is and has to be between employee and employer. In fact, those barriers have to some extent sort of slightly dissolved, that we are all flesh and blood, we're all human beings with whatever sort of strange backdrops and so on we have in our domestic setups, but that we are all learning and have to learn to trust each other as far as possible. The other is one that Evan touched on, which is the social glue element of work. It's more and more apparent that is actually one of the cultural aspects of work, is actually seeing people, being friends, colleagues, whatever sort of relationship and so on, which is more difficult online. But I want to pick up on one point, which I think is really difficult and goes against the grain of working from home. Two things. One, of course, there are a number of areas that can't be. You can't work from home, predominantly hospitality, many aspects of retail, caring, many other points. But the other is the youth profile, and I'd caution this, that if you are in your 20s, possibly in your 30s, and you are, you're maybe still in the parental home, you're renting, you're working out of your bedroom and so on, that's really not a great place to work. And it's fine if you're at, you know, my stage in life, you've got a reasonable place, you've got this is essentially a study where I am right now. That is just not true for others. And we can't, as business leaders, presuppose that that which works for us absolutely can work for our teams, many of whom actively want to be back at work for either social or practical reasons.
Richard, and then Chick.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, so I was going to agree with really Greg's last point, which I think is that everybody isn't equal in the environments that they're working in, and I think that's something we really have to consider, and the mental health impact of those things. We've also talked a lot about innovation, and you know, one of the things that we found is that while we're a digital business, it's been, you know, I've been amazed at how productive we've been, and it has had very little effect to customers and what we do. But the innovative parts, the just the bouncing ideas around, nothing beats being in that same space with people and doing it. So I think there's certain things which are really going to make a difference. My own concern is probably most that we started off being a very office-centric business. We moved to everybody being home working. And both of those have been pretty easy, relatively. The thing that concerns me most is the kind of hybrid environment that I think we're entering into. And I think that's huge challenges around how people cope, where some people are centralized, other people aren't, fairness in that, equality, just approaches for the way that you manage businesses. So as business leaders, I think there's a huge amount of work to do to try and make that kind of hybrid environment really work.
Can I just pipe in there, because I have just experienced that in Parliament, because we were forced to go back, but some people are shielding, and the participation in debates, for example, it just doesn't work, and you create inequalities and discrimination between those who can be in the room and those who are outside the room. And I think it's been said earlier that if everybody is on a Zoom call, that's fine, but if half the people are in a physical room and the other half is not, it makes it difficult. But I do also believe there are opportunities to think of what part of our working life can be on Zoom, and then probably 100% on Zoom, and what part is just basically has to be physical. And there's a joy of it. I mean, I enjoy seeing people I missed when I was here on my own. So I think we need to work hard, business leaders, organizations, everything, including Parliament and Council, you know, what part is going to be physical and what part is going to be virtual.
Chick, you had your...
Thanks. There's just a couple of things I wanted to bring together. Comment earlier from Wera about tourism not recovering fully till 2024, and a few comments in the chat about sort of digital and virtual approaches, and a few comments about Zoom. We can't probably dream of making a Bath Zoom and making it profitable, because, you know, that's established. But we do have Bath specific approaches we can take to this. So making sort of virtual and approaches benefit locally can be a real challenge, but we've got one ready-made in Bath, which is virtual tourism, and we can make that effective, we can make it economically beneficial, but only if we harness the technology and digital futures, virtual and augmented reality, harking back to stuff we were commenting on earlier on, but adding the critical local elements, enhanced experience, so bespoke virtual tourist experiences, personalized virtual tourist experiences, harnessing the local knowledge and expertise that our people in Bath have and can deliver. And that would give the added value that people could potentially pay for, hopefully will pay for, and that would take the advantages we've got to help us bridge towards that 2024 watershed that was mentioned, when maybe we're back up to 100 or 110% tourism compared with where we were before lockdown. So I think there's a combination there of sort of an idea of bridging plus longer term planning that one can adopt. But I think bespoke and local is very important in trying to make digital, in that sense, economically viable and relevant.
Jolly good. Well, we're almost at past. Maybe I could just taking on some of the ideas raised. I mean, if we've got the right skills and the right retraining, and we've got a fantastic connectivity, and we've got this technical skills-based coming out, so maybe a prediction of where's the growth going to be in Bath in the coming years. Anybody want to make a prediction? Will it be digital?
I think it will be sustainable technologies, and the future is going to be in the startups of today. So you know, that's where I think we should be putting our resources and keeping our eyes.
That's what we should be aiming for. And certainly as politicians and political leaders, that's what we should be getting behind.
Yeah, I think if you look at the geography of Bath, we're at the intersection between effectively the Silicon Valley that goes up to Cheltenham and the creative wash that comes around Bath and Bristol. And if you link those two together, that's where the great growth can be for Bath. And it's all green because it's all digital.
Really good. Greg?
I'd add, I know the previous colleagues weren't being prescriptive. I'd add that I don't think we know, and nor do we necessarily need to know, and that might sound odd, but I think it's to do with the confidence. If you look at the history of Bath, there's a beautiful inventiveness which has sparked this city for centuries, even millennia. And it is a place of learning, it's a place of nurturing, a place of development. And I think it's that which we need to be stressing. Of course, there is the front end, which is tourism, which people come here and spend and do and enjoy. But I think it's a very remarkable place, very distinctive place, and we need to highlight that distinctiveness. One iteration may well be sustainable technology. Another iteration may be, Silicon Valley has been talked about, or the creative sector, or whatever. But I think we should have confidence in Bath to regenerate and make itself anew in times to come because of its great historicity of being a beautifully inventive city.
Laurel?
I agree with all, to be perfectly honest. Not that I'm sitting on the fence or anything, but I think the immediacy with digital technology is paramount. And as I say, that is at all levels, from basic navigation and understanding that right through to high-end coding that is the University of Bath's strength. But I also think we actually don't know. I agree with Greg. I think there's things there that, people, although we give them the skills now, we need the fleet of foot and adaptability and accessibility to take on board new qualifications, new sectors that we don't know anything about. And I think, again, agreeing with Greg, the fact that we have such talent in this region, we really do, within Baines, and that's one of the things that started the iStart concept, is the fact that we're not tapping into it. We need to tap into it, and we need to have the agility to change and shift as and when circumstances dictate. So I think that's a real opportunity for that we've done previously, but we also need to grasp for the future.
Thank you. Well, on that, Evan, did you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to add something else. I think it's the responsibility of the incumbent council to ensure that Bath remains a beautiful place for people to want to come to and to be around. And so long as you keep that in the forefront of your mind, then all of the other things will heal with the minimal amount of time. Keep me wanting to have an office in Bath because it's a nice place to be.
Well, I mean, many interesting points, and I think absolutely we were coming here tonight to talk about not just putting all our eggs in one basket, but actually becoming much broader and therefore more resilient, and having different ideas of what Bath could be like. And yes, absolutely, Simon, I think and I couldn't agree more. Sustainable technologies, the green economy, absolutely important. But when we talk about health, and Bath, after all, people came here for centuries to improve their health, drinking the waters, but also having fun together. But what can we not do around this whole health sector? Well-being, mental health hasn't been mentioned tonight, but also again having fun. I mean, I'm the first person who would love to have fun, and in fact Bath as a city of where people have fun is also always been a destination. When people come to Bath because they get entertained, there's a great level of creativity, and there's so many things we can do in this city. What I take away from this evening is really that let's be positive, let's look at the future positively. We've got a lot of the right building blocks here. We've got a lot of people who are actually thinking positively and creatively around how we can reinvent ourselves. Some of it of what we're already good at, and some of it we might not even know what that is. But there's also some perils here, I think, in terms of we might get things wrong. And I think, Matt, you're a councillor and I'm the Member of Parliament for Bath. I think the council has to take a great deal of responsibility. In fact, the council has taken a great deal of responsibility through this crisis and has done very well. I think we often don't shout enough about what we are good at, and the partnership between the council, Virgin Care, and the voluntary sector has actually been exemplary. And we haven't really talked about it because we seem to be sometimes shy about clapping ourselves on the shoulder, and fair enough. But I mean, let's see that the council also has done very well and be proud of that, but also challenge the council on all the things that it needs to get done right in order to move forward positively. And to some extent, I sort of sit here and hope in a year's time, should we all come together and see whether that enthusiasm, that positivity was well placed, and we actually have done, have moved forward and have gone into the right direction and have set the right foundations for a great future. And maybe let's do that. Let's sort of say to ourselves, in a year's time, we'll come back together, look back and see what we have achieved or not. Hopefully we have achieved great things. Well, thank you to everybody. Thank you for all of you on the panel for your insights and for sharing your expertise. Thank you to everybody who has been listening in, sharing great stuff on the chat, which I couldn't all read. Have a wonderful summer break. I hope all of you have a break. It's important. It's part of life as well to take a break. And I see you again in other events. Greg, good luck for your event tomorrow. I wish that will go really well. Please don't watch me singing along. It's awful. But otherwise, have a wonderful summer. We see you again. Thank you again.